For Downrange Television and OutdoorChannel.com, I'm Michael Bane, coming to you this week from the secret hidden bunker in the Rocky Mountains. In this week's news, everything that's old seems to be new again, but in two completely different ways. The FBI should soon be taking delivery of a large number of Rock River AR-15 carbines in 40 Smith & Wesson. Now, why would the Bureau be going to pistol caliber carbines? As you know, they've always had a number of pistol caliber carbines available, including the Colt AR-15 platform 9mm and the HK MP5s in 9mm and later in 40. The FBI has decided to standardize on a 40 Smith & Wesson carbine for some high-risk entry applications for a couple of reasons. Number one, they like the platform interchangeability with their 5.56 carbines. And number two, they think that a pistol-rifle combination in the same caliber offers a lot of advantages. Interestingly enough, they're the same advantages that cowboys back in the 19th century saw when they carried revolvers and lever-action carbines in the same calibers, like 44-40, 45 long Colt, or 38-40, which, strangely enough, has almost exactly the same ballistics as today's 40 Smith & Wesson. A lot of rumors abound that some people at the Academy were having trouble with the muzzle blast and the recoil from the 5.56 carbines. Of course, the recoil is pretty much negligible, but the muzzle blast off the short-barreled M4s is fierce. So, one of the things that the department insisted on was a dedicated 40 Smith & Wesson magazine. No conversions there. They want to make sure it's 100% reliability. So, once again, what's old is new.
What happens when you combine the best of the old with the best of the new? When you take 19th century cowboy revolvers to a 21st century gunfighting academy like Gunsight? Well, the first thing you find out is, darn, it's hard to load those old guns. But the second thing is, well, things haven't changed very much at all. Welcome to Single Action Self-Defense.
Good. Wait. Okay. You have a cock, you'll step out. Cock. Cock. Look.
Shooting Gallery's 10th season is brought to you by Crimson Trace, laser sights for self-defense. Midway, USA, just about everything for shooting, reloading, and gunsmithing. Ruger, firearms for responsible citizens. And by Stag Arms, left-handed, right-handed, you're covered with Stag Arms.
When you hear the words Merwin-Hulbert, you probably think of a really stuffy English shirt manufacturer, or maybe one of those cars with an odd boat-tailed rear. Well, Merwin-Hulberts were one of the most innovative revolvers of the 19th century. In fact, they may have been one of the most popular guns in the Old West, but because the company died out, we'll never actually know that. Those records are long gone. What made the revolver unique? Well, instead of breaking open at the top like a Smith & Wesson or having a loading gate like a single-action Army, on a Merwin-Hulbert, the entire front part of the frame, including the barrel, would move forward and to the left. And as you did that, it would automatically eject the spent cartridges, leaving the live cartridges in the gun. It was one of the fastest guns in the Old West to reload. It looks like, though, that Merwin-Hulbert may be back. A couple of years ago, the company name was purchased, and some experts from the firearms industry devoted themselves to bringing the revolver back. And my little cherubs and seraphim tell me that it's within a couple of months of having products actually for sale. One of the interesting things about the revolver, according to one of the executives, is that most of the advance orders are from people who want the gun as a concealed carry handgun. It came in some very big revolver cartridges even back in the 19th century, and will be available in cartridges like 44 Special, 44 Russian, 45 Colt, some of the smaller cartridges. You can change cylinders. If you want 44 Russian and 44 Special, you can get a spare cylinder. If you want a 3.5-inch snubby barrel, a 4, a 4.5, a 5, a 7-inch barrel, All the barrels are replaceable. And one of the interesting things about the gun, and it always had this in the Old West, is the grip frame includes a skull crusher, a big steel grip frame with a nice sharp point on the end of it. That's one of the reasons these guns were hugely popular with law enforcement agencies, especially big city law enforcement agencies in the 1800s, and will likely be very popular as concealed carry handguns when they show up again. Figure MSRP of $12.50. Once again, what's old is new.
I'm Michael Bane, and this is The Best Defense. We've talked a lot about how one of the most terrifying situations for anyone is a home invasion, an attack on the place that you feel safest. If that attack happens at night and you have to move forward to protect a family member, to protect a child, it's even more terrifying. Sometimes things that go bump in the night really can hurt you.
What you saw in that scenario was somebody who really did not have a plan. They were trying to deal with a situation that was a sudden occurrence. They came out, did the best they could with what they had, but they didn't have much to work with.
No, about the best we can say during that critical incident is that there was a gun in the house and I woke up. The fact is I had no technique, I had no plan. It looked like maybe trying to execute some very complex motor skill under stress that I hadn't practiced. Maybe that wasn't even going to work well anyway. Got fixated on the fact that my light was on all the time, doing that kind of 1960s sitcom security guard thing, focusing on the light, looking at the white beam, got focused on the fact the door was kicked in, got caught in front of a bunch of danger areas, focused on the wrong ones, got drawn into them, and as we saw, the bad guy took advantage of probably knowing where I was every step of the way to come out behind me and end the incident with not a good result.
One of the things you need to bear in mind is that in your own home, you have all the time you need to develop a plan. It's something that you can work on, you can prepare in advance, and you can also prepare the necessary skills in advance.
From our sincerest form of flattery department, we note that some other television channels are following the Outdoor Channel's lead and actually programming guns. Spike TV, specializing at that younger male demographic, is going to be offering a 2-hour block on a self-defense show. Now let's see, this show is going to show the right way, the wrong way, the best way. It's going to talk about guns and self-defense. I wonder where I've heard any of that before. Well, my friend Gerald McRaney will be in the Michael Bane position there. And on Versus, which is specialized mostly in team sports with a little hunting, we hear that F&H is going to be heavily bankrolling a 3-gun competition series that will start up next year. So hey, more guns on the channel is good. And guys, remember, it is indeed the sincerest form of flattery. In politics this week, we're less than a month away from the oral arguments on the Supreme Court McDonald versus Chicago. At stake is whether the Chicago gun ban is constitutional. But the larger question is whether the Supreme Court decision on Heller will apply to all the states. Obviously, the Heller decision only applied to Washington, D.C., which is a federal enclave. There's been some controversy as the National Rifle Association was able to carve out a portion of the time in the oral arguments. The primary case will be presented by Alan Gura, who did such a brilliant job presenting the Heller case to the Supreme Court. Why would the NRA want a voice? Well, basically, there are 2 ways of incorporating the rights enumerated in the Bill of Rights to the states. They're both in the 14th Amendment to the Constitution. The NRA wants to argue due process, which is the way typically that those rights in the Bill of Rights have been incorporated as applying to all the states, all the political entities in the United States. Alan Gura is also arguing privileges and immunities, which is a little bit more of a complex clause, but is also a way of incorporating those rights into the law of the land. In either case, the key point is that everyone on the gun rights side wants to make sure that we have the best possible case presented to the Supreme Court, because in many ways the incorporation of Heller may well be more important than Heller. Okay, that's it for this week. And remember that anything we've talked about here on the video podcast, you can find out the links at Downrange Television and OutdoorChannel.com. Also, be sure to listen to Downrange Radio, where this week we're going to be talking about bigotry as it applies to the Second Amendment. And also tune in to Wednesday Night at the Range, the one, the only, the original best gun programming only on Outdoor Channel. I'm Michael Bane. See you next week.